was terrified because I didn't know if I was going to make it out or not. That's what was rushing through my head the whole time.
We heard 3 shots, so, I grabbed her. We're all running, so I ran towards the trees because I didn't want to be in sight of whoever, was shooting.
I shouldn't be going through this at my school. Like, this is my daily life. I shouldn't have to feel like that.
Well, we are back with a Fox News alert. New details emerging about the deadly shooting in Santa Fe High School in Texas. 10 people are dead and a 17-year-old student admitting to opening fire on his fellow classmates.
The teenager now behind bars and charged with capital murder. Texas and the entire nation in mourning this morning as investigators search for a motive. Ed has a panel with more on all of this. Ed, take it away.
All right, thanks, guys. Our panel's here to weigh in. High school teacher Daryl St. George, U.S. Army veteran and former NYPD officer Dr. Darren Porcher, and psychotherapist and parent of a high school student, Nancy Collier. We appreciate all of you being here. I want to start with you, Daryl, on being a teacher. What is happening in our classrooms right now? How much fear is there? How much of this is exaggerated? How much of this is real?
Well, I don't think it's exaggerated. I think what we're seeing is these horrific, tragic events, and it's a symptom of a bigger problem that we're really grappling with. And I think that sometimes the tendency is to try to get fixated on one particular aspect of the problem, and that's dangerous. I think we have to look at this holistically. Certainly guns are an important part of this, but it's bigger than just the guns. From my perspective as a teacher, I understand how important prevention is. I hear, there's a lot of talk about arming teachers. I think that's the worst thing that you could do. More guns is not the answer to this.
But what
More
about
violence.
the safety aspect of that? What about the fact that you had a resource officer here in Texas? He's in the hospital right now battling for his life, but he probably prevent the loss of many more lives.
Well, look, and my thoughts and prayers go out to him as well as the other victims and those who've died in this terrible tragedy, as well as the countless other tragedies that have happened. And if we look at Parkland, you had a situation where you had somebody who was an armed law enforcement and did not respond. So for me, when I look at it, especially as a teacher in the classroom, and when I talk to my students, if you want to talk about safety, the feeling is guns in the classroom, that makes people feel less safe. And that's coming from the kids, too.
Well, as a veteran of the NYPD, how do you respond to that?
Well, I'm somewhat of a hybrid model because I'm a college professor. In addition to that, I was a lieutenant in the NYPD. I think that security is necessary, and I think we really need to ramp up the fortifications in the scholastic area. One of the things is I use the contrast and comparison of what happens with TSA. I've never heard of someone storming the front of an airport because TSA has a very vigorous screening process when people come in. I think this is something that can be utilized in a scholastic environment, such as the body scans, things to that effect. We need to have those choke points. Case in point, when we have these shooters, I give you the contrast and comparison of the Nicholas Cruz shooting that happened in Parkland. Had those doors shut down immediately, Nicholas Cruz would have been kept on the external perimeter, not the internal perimeter. So as a law enforcement professional, I feel it's necessary for us to ramp up these fortifications. But as an educator, I can understand where he's coming from, but I disagree. I think that you do have educators that are capable of carrying firearms, such as myself, in these classrooms if necessary.
Nancy, talk a little bit about the impact of social media.
Social media is, there's always been rage, there's always been anger, there's always been depression, but what we have with social media is we have this incredible fire source that lights rage on fire. And
this shooter was posting things, I think, about Nazis and things that were disturbing. But why don't people in the family, in the school, pick up on these signs?
A lot of it is going on in secret. This is the thing. We have to know what our kids are doing on the internet. What happens is you find a kid who's marginalized, who has no friends, whatever it is, and he finds his group online, and that foments his disenfranchisement. It makes him, it validates him for his rage.
And it usually is a male.
It's usually a male. Social media is dreadful when you have a child that's already on the fringes. He's going to find a group, and he's going to find a way to make whatever that rage happen.
Yeah.
And he's going to get access to what he needs to make it happen.
All right. We appreciate all of your insights. They're very valuable this morning as we try to deal with this and think about preventing it from happening in the future. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.